Hi again, everybody. Frank Phillips here, and today I want to talk about the importance of making quick decisions when you're doing a hard news story. Now, if you're writing for your church newsletter, if you're sending in a press release, this probably won't directly affect you. Maybe it'll give you a sense of what has to be done when reporters are facing deadlines with hard news stories. Well, let's talk about deadlines first of all. A deadline, as I'm sure you can understand, is an imposed time frame when a news story has to be completed. Now, sometimes this is imposed by press time, in the case of newspapers or even magazines. Sometimes it can be imposed because you simply want to beat the competition to a story. Sometimes it can be imposed simply because you have so many things to do that you must get done in a certain amount of time, so you've got to get this story taken care of immediately. Sometimes that can bite you in the you know what. That happened to me the other day because I went into the radio station and the morning man said, "Did you see that story that was online in Terre Haute that had happened?" It was a terrible story, a tragedy about a young man who lost his life in a train accident when his vehicle and the train collided. So anyway, I was getting ready to do two 20-minute interviews for a program we have called Focus on the Community. And I just simply got in too big of a hurry. I got the story from the sheriff's email. I pasted it into our website. But when it came time to do the headline, yeah, I messed up the headline. So we have to be doubly, even triple careful when we're doing stories. That was a case that I simply should have waited, and a few more minutes would not have made any difference. But I decided to go ahead and post the story even while I was talking to the morning man, and that was a mistake on my part. But, you know, you live and learn. And that's just one of the things you have to do. Some things you have to make decisions about. And you may not always know if you make the right decision. For example, we had a murder situation in our community last week. And in this particular case, I got a text from my boss saying, "Hey, this murder's been reported on Levitt Street." And so what did I do? Well, first thing, I tried calling the chief of police. No answer. So I got in the car and I drove over to Levitt Street. Didn't know what part of Levitt Street it was on, so I checked my map. I started asking him questions, which he did not have the authority to release the information. And he did tell me that the case had been turned over to the Indiana State Police. So I said, "Thank you," and I said, "I really don't want to bother you," and I started walking away. I turned around when I got behind the line where they did not want people to cross, and I was able to get a really good picture using the telephoto lens on my iPhone of the group of officers with the coroner who I've known for many years. So I knew who he was, and I had a good idea of why he was there with the police officers. So we had that picture. We had a picture of the police cars in front of the house and behind the line, or in front of the line where they told us to stay away. And so I called my boss and I told him what I had found out. I said, "They're not letting me get closer." I said, "I'm going to have to talk to the public information officer for the state police, which is Sergeant Matt Ames." In fact, I just done a 20-minute interview with him a week or so prior to that, and I've known him for several years at this point also. So my boss was very supportive. That's important. Be sure if you're doing hard news that you have a boss who is supportive. And so I went ahead and I posted the story with the pictures as we had at that time. Now, at that particular time, one of the TV stations had already said that it was a murder, but I'm not sure how they got that information. I did not have clarification of that or confirmation of that situation, and so I was not comfortable reporting it. I did say that some media had been reporting it was a murder, but I did not have confirmation at that time. You have to make decisions like this very quickly sometimes, and you have to think on your feet. A week or so earlier, I had made the mistake of taking some information from a website and posting it, and I found out that the information was totally erroneous. And so we had to take down the post almost immediately, and I had to listen to a lecture from my boss, a good-natured lecture about now, Frank, we have to double and triple check things before we put them on our website. Yes, sir, I know that. I understand. You have to make decisions, fast decisions many times. That evening, I did get a hold of the public information officer. I knew I could not get any more information on the scene, so I went home and from the comfort of my recliner, I started making phone calls and watching websites. And Sergeant Ames told me that there would be information coming within the hour. Well, we did get the picture of a person of interest involved in the shooting, and it was confirmed at that time that there was a murder. The police chief returned my call. I've always had good luck with the local police returning calls from me. Some reporters do not, but I have always found the police to be as cooperative as they could. They have their jobs to do just as I have my job to do, and I'm thankful that I can get along with the police the way I do. But the police chief confirmed it was a murder, and I got from him the time. It was, I'm trying to remember now, something like 3:30 p.m. that afternoon. It was called in to 911. There had been shots fired, and when police arrived on the scene, they found a body in the alley behind this particular house in the 300 block of Levitt Street. So then I got a hold of Sergeant Ames, and he told me that there would be more information coming, and as I said, he did release a picture of a person of interest who ended up being the person who was arrested the next morning and charged with the murder of the person who was shot and killed in the alley behind the house. Well, at that particular time, I followed the story as best I could, followed what other media was saying. Now that's important too, to follow what other reporters are saying on the web and on social media until about 11:30 p.m. when I gave up and went to bed. I'd been up since 5 o'clock that morning. So we got a press release from the state police shortly after 10, and they said there would be no more information coming that evening. But to be safe, I kept following it until 11:30 or so, and then I gave up and went to bed. We had updated the story repeatedly throughout the evening on our website. Now here's where another decision comes into play. We sent the story to Virtual Media, which has been giving local news on our radio stations, our 6 radio stations, for many months now. I don't know how many months. And the reporter for Virtual News, who is located in Detroit, Michigan, we're outside of Terre Haute, Indiana, so it's several hundred miles away. And basically she asked me, well, is this an important story? Well, I thought about that, and I realized that in Detroit, Michigan, I'm sure they have shootings every day. They probably have murders at least once a day. If you're from Detroit and I'm wrong, then I apologize, but I know that in a big city, crime is much more rampant than it is in Terre Haute, Indiana, and certainly more so than Brazil, Indiana, where I'm located. So I wrote her back and said, yes, we'd updated the story several times the night before. Well, after the arrest was made, I made a mistake. I feel it was my mistake now because I knew that this person was going to make his initial court appearance on a certain date. And I wasn't sure which court, but in Brazil we only have two courts. One is Clay Circuit Court, the other is Clay Superior Court. So it had to be one of those two courts. Well, I did not go to that hearing. I had the charging information. I knew what the accusation was going to be against the defendant, and I just didn't think there was any reason to go because I'm a part-time reporter now, okay? I used to work 50, 60 hours a week doing news and for a newspaper and for a radio station at another time. And as a part-time reporter, I made the decision I'm not going to go to this hearing. Well, I read the report of the reporter who went to the hearing, and I realized, oh, I should have been there. The reporter did a good job saying this is what the charges were. The plea of not guilty was entered on behalf of the defendant, and that was very important. The reporter also said this is who the defense attorney is going to be, and this is when the trial date has been set, and so forth and so on. Well, I made the decision not to go to that, and I wish I would have, because I could have gotten a picture of the defendant outside the courtroom, perhaps. Perhaps. It doesn't always work out, but sometimes you can. I could have described the orange jumpsuit that I'm sure that the defendant was wearing, because all defendants who make their initial appearance in court and are in custody at the time wear the same orange jumpsuits. So I could have made an interesting story out of that. I neglected to do so. And I've beat myself up for that a couple of times this week. And I did kind of make up for it because we posted the story about another crime that took place, a teacher, a school teacher in one of our public schools who has been accused of sending inappropriate and harmful material to one of her students. And so I wrote that story and her jail picture, her mugshot, for our website. So I felt like maybe I had partly redeemed myself in doing that. But you have to make decisions. You have to make quick decisions. And that's just part of being a reporter. As you are going about your job, if you're doing hard news, maybe if you're a new reporter, you got something out of this. If you are an experienced reporter, then I would like to hear from you either way. Please leave a comment below on how you would have handled these situations and why, especially why you would have made that decision. You know, they say about doctors and lawyers that they are practicing because they don't ever get it perfect. Well, that's true of reporters too. I don't care where you're reporting or who you're reporting for. We don't get it perfect. We make mistakes. We make decisions that we wish we could go back and reverse. But it's just part of the game. But if you can look beyond your own mistakes, and if you can learn from those mistakes, and if you can enjoy what you're doing, if you can enjoy the reporting, the gathering of facts, if you can enjoy writing your story, if you can enjoy reporting your story on the air, television, radio, or in print if you're a newspaper reporter, then that's a wonderful thing. As I said before, be a reporter. It's a great thing to do.